Player ratings for the Springboks then, following that absolute demolition of the All Blacks, the biggest defeat that any New Zealand team has ever faced on home soil in the history of the sport, and one of the finest performances from any South African team in the history of the sport as well. And that is saying something, given some of the great teams down the years. Now, quite often when a game has just finished, you get into kind of exaggerations, and maybe I just went down that rabbit hole there. What I will say is, I will just reiterate what I said earlier in my video immediately following the game. That was the best 40 minutes of rugby that I've seen any individual team put out on the field. And it almost feels harsh doing individual player ratings, given it was such a complete team performance. And you know what? In the second half, players were there absolutely shredding New Zealand to bits. But a big part of that was the fact that they were softened up in the first half by guys that did an important job for the team when it was a lot tighter. But nonetheless, I am going to do player ratings. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to do something on this player rating that I have never, ever done before. I'm not going to tell you what yet. I'll reveal that in a minute. Something I'm going to do here that I've never, ever done before. I'm going to start with Ox Nche, 7 out of 10. Now, just to calibrate this, 6 out of 10 to me is like a solid, that's a decent, solid, as you'd expect performance. And it goes up from there. 7 is a pretty good performance. And the scrum dominance was there. Oxenche wasn't that busy around the park, but then not really many of actually the front 5 forwards were, but in terms of ball handling and attack, because the ball was just going edge to edge all the time. But yeah, solid performance from Ox. Same from Malcolm Marks. Messed up his first line out, and there must have been a point where you're thinking, oh, not again. Not again. But you started to see him running as the edge forward in wide channels, bumping people off. The line out got stronger and stronger as the game went on. And yeah, I think he did his job of just tiring out that New Zealand pack and putting loads of work. Same goes for the tank, Thomas du Toit. Vilcolo is a freak. Quadzilla is absolutely immense, and he came on after 41 minutes. But like I say, the platform was set by that starting front row for the replacements to come on and annihilate the All Blacks. Lou Diaka, I've given him a 6 because he was only on the field for, 9 minutes. Did nothing spectacular, did nothing majorly wrong in the time that he was on. So yeah, fine, solid 6. Ruan Nokia, an 8 out of 10. I could have gone higher, in fact. I love this guy. I really, really, really like him. Just to look at a glance, you think, is he big enough to be a South African lock? Like, he's a tall guy, but South African locks are mutants, absolute beasts. He punches well above his weight. I mean, he's not small, but he punches above his weight, and he puts in immense amounts of work. Watching him live, as I did in the first 2 rounds of the one of the Rugby Championship games. I can't remember which one it was. Was it Ellis Park? He's impressive to watch in person. He just goes around hitting people, hitting rucks, and just taking care of business. Siya Kolisi, 9 out of 10. What a performance from the skipper. Immense. Ball carrying, interventions, disrupting the opposition breakdown, tidying up their own breakdown. It was a lot tidier and much more on a plate from the box this time. I thought Siya Kolisi was excellent. He went off after maybe just short of 50 minutes. Same with Pieter-Steph du Toit. This guy is a god of a rugby player. And you can get, I had a conversation with this about this the other day, you can get numb to the brilliance of some players. Obviously, been World Player of the Year, one of the best players of his generation, and you can just take it for granted that he is incredible. But even in a team that played one of the best performances ever, Pieter-Steph du Toit stood out, 9 out of 10. And same goes for Jasper Wiese, and haven't they missed that go forward? Him sitting down, was a few players he sat down, Samisoni Takiaho being one, and Geordie Barrett got sat down as well. And it just provides a bit of identity around that Bok team. One focal ball carrier, and as soon as you get that front football, everything else can kind of fill in from there. So yeah, mammoth performance from Jasper Wiese. So all 3 of the back row, 9, 9, 9. Let's get to the backs. Corbus Reinach, 7 out of 10. Good performance. A few knock-ons, maybe took him down from maybe an 8 or higher, but he was sharp and the ball was there and it was away. And he was a constant danger around the fringes, and that ties in the close defenders, leaving more space out wide. And didn't South Africa use it? He was, which try was it? Was it the Willems try where there was scrum penalty? Reinach went just off he goes, sprinter speed, and away they go. Really good performance. Sasha Feinberg Ngomazulu went off injured and was okay without being spectacular. Made that error, kicking the ball not to touch from a penalty. He went off. Libok came on. Ethan Hooker to the manor born. It seemed like a strange call, having played against like Italy, Georgia, and then Australia, to not give Ethan Hooker time in the saddle in those games, and then to bring him in against New Zealand seemed like a Eden Park, especially when he was off the bench, seemed like a strange call. What a performance with his first start. Kind of a quiet first half. The ball wasn't really getting to him, but he was chasing kicks. There's one phrase that I love, which is be the best at the things that require no skill. It requires no skill whatsoever to work your nuts off chasing after kicks. And he did that incredibly. And then as the game wore on, he got more and more time in the ball, and he was instrumental in, I can't remember which try it was, but when he carried the ball back, bust through a tackle, and was in open field. And I think long-term, he's obviously going to be a centre contender, but he looked pretty handy on the wing. I have never done this before, ever. I have never given out a 10. Generally speaking, I don't believe in giving out 10 because 10 is perfection. And it should be almost impossible to reach perfection. There's always something you can do better. And I'm sure there are things that Damien Willems will probably look back at and go, I could have done this better, I could have done that better. But from where I was watching, that was absolutely supreme. And to think that his whole of last year was blighted by injury and he hasn't quite looked himself. But that was vintage Damien Willems. I've never given out a 10 out of 10 in a player rating. I just have for Damien Willems. That was majestic. And whether he was at 12, where he's a big old unit. He's a big unit. He can carry hard. And he can offload right at the gain line, open up space for other people, or counter-attack him from 15. And obviously, we've seen him at fly half before. What a player. Kanan Moody, a little bit shaky defensively sometimes. Really good in the air, really good under the high ball. And in attack, the guy's a beast. I thought it was a really good performance. Cheslin Colby, at times, was doing it all himself. He was popping up. It was like he could teleport to different parts of the pitch. How did he get back there? He was just up the other end. What? Is that Cheslin again? Just, the guy's a freak. And he took his try really well. He didn't take his first opportunity to try well, but I'll give credit to Geordie Barrett for that intervention. But very good performance. And Apaleli Fassi, another player who went off. In that first half, Will Jordan actually got the better of him in the air a couple of times. But reasonable. There was no one in the starting 15 that had a poor game. There were some that had decent games, many that had good games, and a few that had spectacular games. As for the bench, massive impact when they came on as well. Jan-Hendrik Wessels, 7. Marnus van der Merwe, 7. Wilco Low, 8. That one try they scored where they got the penalty advantage and Reinach sniped off the base. And was it Willems that scored that one? I can't remember which one it was, but Wilco Low actually just drove New Zealand so much so that the whole of their pack had been turned to the blind side right near their own touchline and were nowhere near the ball and just could not get back. He's a freak, is Quadzilla. Octopus Arms himself, the Viking son of Sneeman, 8 out of 10. His first try was chalked off, but he got his try in the end. And Quackersmith, what impact off the bench. He is so good off the bench, isn't he? He's just so violent the way he carries. Yeah, massive impact from him. Same from Grant Williams. Came on as HIA at halfback for Reinach and then was slotted in on the wing when Colby had to go off. And the wheels and the rugby brain on the guy, I think he may have got himself out of position, possibly, when Will Jordan went in for that try in the corner. Whatever the case, his scramble D to stop Will Jordan scoring that try, absolutely immense. And another example of be the best at the things that require no skill. Just work your nuts off. But he is a class act. Marnie Libok, 9 out of 10. How good was he? And it's been said before, if this Tony ball is going to be a thing, Sasha can do it. I still think Andre Pollard can do it, but no one does it better than Marnie Libok. He nailed his kicks as well. Wasn't under the same amount of pressure, but it was his general kicks, the variety of his kicks, the crossfield kick pass, the high kicks, the big bombs that he was putting up, and then the distribution skills. That was an immense performance from Marnie Libok. And the rumours of his demise, of him being dropped out of the side, never to be seen again, were greatly exaggerated. And he could be the key to this new attacking shape of the box, although they do have lots and lots of good options. And finally, Andre the Giant, absolute beast mode on a few occasions. Got his try. Again, giving a focal point, and what amazing options. Damien Dialende or Andre Esterhazen or Damien Willems are at 12. That's just cheat code. It's not fair. Honestly, if that was maybe his 21st or 22nd Springbok cap, something like that. He's under 25 caps anyway, and I have said it before. If he was English, he would be 70, 80, maybe closing in on 100 caps. It's having a guy with that ability, and his pass for the Colby try shows that he's not just a bludgeoning force boshing his way up the middle. So, yeah. It's the temptation is to go overboard or exaggerate when things are bad. And I think from what I saw from a lot of Bok fans, there was maybe a bit of exaggeration about how bad things were last week. And I guess the danger is that there's too much exaggeration about how good things were this week. But I don't think it's possible to really exaggerate that. That was almost a perfect performance. Second half, a perfect performance. The absolute immense balance between pure power and raw pace. And the perfect blend of classic Springbok rugby and Tony ball, if that's what it is. And I think I said when I broke down the last week's game from Eden Park, one of the things I said is that the two aren't mutually exclusive. It's not one or the other. You have to have both. And in fact, the amazing wild attacking game only works when you have a raw, brutal, physical game as well, because that just sucks people in. It tires big men. It exposes holes, and that was the story of this game. It was like a heavyweight prize fight, and the first 5-6 rounds just kind of tiring the opponent out. So the legs were jelly, the guard is dropping, and then you can start landing the knockout blows one after the other. And it's just a shame for New Zealand that there isn't a mechanism in rugby where the coach can throw a towel in and say, end it, because that contest was so one-sided in the second half. There's some thoughts. I'll be doing the New Zealand player ratings as well, so make sure you check in on those and the others. And I will see you on the next one.